All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jim McGrath, and I'm the co-founder of 7 Points. 7 Points, as Evan had mentioned, is a partner with GSI. We specialize in Salesforce.com services. We've been working in the Salesforce.com space for over 5 years. We have a number of consultants around the United States and overseas, and I'm happy to be with you this afternoon to talk to you about the community aspects of the Salesforce platform. I am a certified Salesforce professional, and I've been working on the platform for 12 plus years now, so that makes me an old guy. So thank you for joining us. So a little bit about GSI and 7 Points. As Evan mentioned, we do provide services throughout the United States and North America. Most of our consultants have over 7 years of experience with the Salesforce platform. Many of them hold multiple certifications in different disciplines within Salesforce. And important to that set of skills is that we also have a number of certified project managers and scrum masters to keep us organized and to help make sure that we deliver our projects with speed and efficiency. So thank you for that little bit about us. So let's talk about what we want to talk about this afternoon, which is the Salesforce.com community. But why are customers looking for solutions on the Salesforce.com community? And a big reason is that acquiring customers is an expensive proposition. When you look at the amount of time and money that companies spend on their sales and marketing effort, it takes a lot of time and money to bring a new customer into the fold. And as many companies are experiencing this, complex sales require a team approach. So now you have multiple people working together to bring a new customer into the fold. So on average, it can take about 5 times as much effort and capital to bring on a new customer as it does to keep an existing one. So your existing customers are gold to you. And the positive of keeping and retaining those customers is that existing customers will buy on average 31% more from you than a new customer. And why is that? Because they trust you. You have a relationship with them. They've used your product or services before, so that's familiar to them. So you want to keep those customers that you have. So how do you go about doing that? Well, as you talk to your customers, many of them are expecting you to engage with them online. So the days of just having a phone-in call center to answer questions from your customer or just rely on email are over. Customers want to have an online experience. They want to be able to interact with you after hours when it's convenient for them. They want rich content. They want information that's going to help them use your product or service better. So customers are demanding it. So when you look at the types of industries and the types of companies that are looking to bring online services, what's apparent is it varies across industries. So what might be good for financial services, which is the ability for a customer to edit their account and look at their policy and pay their bills, is going to be very different for a company in the healthcare space, where their customers may want to review medical records, look at knowledge-based articles. So while there are similarities across the various industries, it's not a cookie-cutter approach. Every industry is a little bit different, and frankly, every company within an industry is slightly different. So while frameworks are helpful and best practices are helpful, it really is going to come down to what services, features can you offer your customers to engage them and keep them as your customers. So you have to really answer the question, what do my customers need? And really the best way to figure that out is to ask them. So I'm sure some of you have customers that you may have labeled as demanding or high maintenance or needy or those sorts of things. Those customers are actually gold, because those are the customers that are not afraid to tell you what they want. They're not afraid to make demands of your company. So you really want to find those customers and pull them in and ask them, what do you need? If I was to put up some services on our community for you, what would give you value? What are the kinds of things that would help you use our product better, give you more value for our product? So really the first step is to identify who those customers are and pull them into a focus group. Bring them together if you can, and find out from them what they would like to see, and use them throughout the process. We've done many community sites with our customers, and we've never had a problem getting the customer's customer to give us input. We've never had a problem getting those customers to come back and beta test and even do some user acceptance testing when we're getting ready to launch a new site. So find out who those customers are, pull them together, ask them what they need, ask them what's in it for them that would make this a good investment of your time and your company's capital. One of the things that I want to offer, and I did put this in the chat notes, is Salesforce has published a very quick and easy to use planning template. They're calling it the Community Management Canvas. And it's really a nice tool to help you kind of get focused on what is it you want this community to offer, what are the services that you should offer, the features and functions, what resources do you need, what's kind of your priority of things that you want to offer. And it helps you really build that business case. So as many of you I'm sure are faced with this, when you want to build out a set of features in the Salesforce community, you have to justify it. You're going to have to go to your budget stakeholders and get them to agree that this is a good use of capital and promote it for you. So building that case, showing them what you can do to help engage customers and retain those customers will go a long way. So this tool I think will help you, and there's a link to it in the notes. Okay, so what are some of the best practices for engaging customers on a community? Well, number one, make the navigation easy. Don't make your customers have to think too much about how to find things and get around within the community. So make it visual, make it easy to navigate. Enable case deflection. What do we mean by that? Give your customers the content they need in order to let them answer their own questions. So you may get customers that have to open up a case with you to get some sort of support question answered, but the best thing to do is try to give them enough insight and access to knowledge articles or other content that you have that will let them answer their own questions and not have to open up a support case with you. Encourage engagement. Give them opportunities to interact with not only your staff, but also other customers. Let customers help customers. That's a really effective way of building that community. Make search prominent. Make it easy for them to find things. Make it easy for them to search things. Target your audiences. When you're building a community, think about the different personas or different actors who are going to use the community and target content for those different groups of users. So you may have some features within your community that you only want a subset of your community users to have access to. So you can set the community to kind of behave that way, to only show certain content or certain features. And finally, ask for feedback. As your community continues to grow, when you add new features, you want to get feedback from your power users and from your frequent flyer users so that you can make adjustments and continue to enhance it as you go. Okay, so why Salesforce communities? Why is there a case for building out a engagement site like this on Salesforce? Well, number one, there's a number of pre-built templates that will help you out of the box. And when I get into the demo portion of the presentation, I'm going to show you how those templates really help spearhead and move you forward quickly. Secondly, a lot of drag and drop components are now available. So taking a template and adding to it with readily available components that just require clicks and configuration as opposed to code are there for you. You also have the ability to build custom themes. If the layouts that are provided in the template don't meet your needs, you can always add your own. It really accelerates the design and development. So I'm going to show you today, we're going to build a quick little prototype site. We're going to go from skeleton to a working site this afternoon, and you'll see how quick and easy it is to actually get that site up. A single source of truth. So this is a really key thing. When you build a community on the Salesforce platform, you're really sharing with your community users the same data that your internal Salesforce users are using. So if you're going to share case information or account information or opportunity information, whatever the different sorts of records are that you want to share, it's going to be the same set of records that your internal users are using. And the nice thing about the Salesforce community is that you have complete control over which records are seen by who, which fields on which records can be seen or updated by who. So you have a lot of control over that. And lastly, the Salesforce community templates are designed for mobile first. So all of these templates are responsive. They will look just as good on an iPad or smartphone as they do on your full screen browser. So Salesforce has been building out this portion of the platform for several years now. The Lightning Community Builder has really matured as a tool. Lots of new components, lots of new templates have been added. So that is the preferred method now of building out communities, is to use the Lightning Community Builder. As you'll see when I demo it, it's fairly easy to use and navigate through. There's a lot of what you see is what you get sort of configuration to it. And you can literally build and launch a new community within a couple of days, depending on what your needs and requirements are. So starting with building out a community, you're going to start with a template. That template will essentially lay out the structure of the different types of pages. It'll come with some pre-built pages that you can then configure further. You'll always be able to add additional pages as you need them. As we get into the demo this afternoon, you'll see how we're going to take a very basic template and turn that into something that looks visually appealing, as well as offers some functionality that will be of benefit to your customers. All right, so let's kind of step through quickly, how would you set up a new community? So it's going to start with selecting which template you want to use. There's a handful of templates now available in the Lightning Builder. The one that's been available for some time now is the Nepali template, the Customer Service Nepali template. The Customer Account Portal is a little bit newer, and Partner Central is even newer still. So the templates they vary slightly as far as the types of structures and de facto components that come on the pages. So it's best to start with the one that aligns closest to your goals for your community. And then you'll take that starter template, if you will, and you'll build on it from there. You can switch the template later if you decide that you're not really happy with the first choice you made. So you do have the ability to switch it out later if you should so choose to do it. So once you have selected your community, you're just going to generate the community. It only takes a few minutes for the community to be built. And once that pre-configured community is out there, you're going to be able to jump into it and make some changes. With the Lightning Builder, once we're in the builder, you'll see this afternoon, we're going to have access to a variety of different components. We'll be able to navigate around the pages, drop those components where we want them. We can change the layouts if we want. We'll add some content to make the pages look more visually appealing. But it's fairly intuitive to get around within the builder. You can certainly brand, and I'm going to show you how to do that this afternoon. We're going to add some logos and some branding themes to our community to make it look more like our other web properties. It's pretty common when customers are building a community to want it to have a similar look and feel, or at least a similar branding, if you will, to their other existing web properties. So that's a common need, and you'll see that it's quite easy to change out those brand themes and those colors. Salesforce Records. So as I mentioned, the power of the community is that you're building it on the same platform that your internal users are using for sales and service and other business processes. You'll be able to add whatever types of records that you want to make available to your community users. And as I said, you'll be able to control what records they can see, what fields they can see on those records, and even what fields they can edit if you should choose to let them edit records from the community. All of that is controlled through standard Salesforce security, and it's all audited. So you'll be able to see whether it was an internal user or an external user who made a change to a record. And then once you have made all of your changes, you'll be able to preview your community. It'll be up to you when to publish it. You can certainly stand up communities and have them basically in preview mode for a period of time before you decide to publish them. But once they're published, depending on how you've set up the community, it can be immediately available to customers. You may require some customers to register before you'll give them access to the community. And I'm going to show you in the demo a community where we're going to allow a guest user to have access to some features within the community, but then we're going to have some features that are only available to an authenticated logged in user. Okay. All right, so that's the run through of why a community is important for customer engagement. Let me flip over to Salesforce demo org, and I'm going to take you through an actual build out of a community. So I'm going to get over to my Salesforce org here. Okay, so if you've played around with communities before, the way to get to the community builder is just type in community here in the setup menu, and you're going to see all communities. When you click on that, you'll get a list of any communities that you have set up in your org. Notice that you can have up to 100 communities. That's standard with your Salesforce licensing. I've got 3 defined in this community, or I'm sorry, this org. And this one here, webinar 1, is the one that I just created earlier today from the customer service Napoli template. So we're going to go into the workspaces here. I just want to show you that. So every community that you stand up is going to have these different workspaces available to it. You'll most often spend time initially in the administration panel, but the bulk of your time will be spent here in the builder. This is where you'll go to actually configure the pages and change the look and feel of your community. So let's click on that builder, and let's go into the Lightning builder itself. Okay, so I'm in my vanilla community. So this was generated from the customer service template. And this is what it looks like pretty much out of the box. Once the community is generated, this is what your home page is going to look like. So I'm not real keen on this color schema, and I'm not really keen on how this looks. So I'm going to build a little community that is designed for a for a food service company that wants to give its customers the ability to interact with it, look at some information, and potentially submit cases and manage those cases through the community. So the first thing I want to do is change some of the styling and the branding. So I'm going to come up here to my little toolbars over here. I'm going to click on my theme, and the first thing I want to do is set some of my branding colors. So this is the default. I'm okay with the text color being this color, and I'm okay with the detailed text color, but I'm not keen on this gray blue pattern, so I want to get rid of this. And I'm going to change this to a much stronger color. I'm going to go with a red. So I'm going to put in the hex code for that. And notice as soon as I put that in, my button here went from that blue to now red. I also want to change my link color. And I'm going to change that to a variation of my red theme here. So a little bit darker. My overlay color, I think, is good the way it is. Yep. My border color, I'm going to change that a little bit. I want that to be closer to my theme here. And my background color should be good. And then I'm going to change my nav bar. Here's my nav bar. I want to change that color as well. And I'm going to change that to also be my strong red color. Okay, so in just a couple of clicks here, you can see that I've already changed, the look of this a little bit. The other thing that I want to do is I want to change. I want to get my images and my backgrounds set. So I'm going to go ahead and add a logo here. So I've got a logo for my site, and I've got my image information stored in a content library in Salesforce. I've named it the asset library, and I'm going to grab my logo, and we're going to toss that in there, And I'm going to grab my image header, which is just a big banner picture. And so you can see by just adding some color schemes and some background images, my site all of a sudden starts to look quite a bit different than it did just a few minutes ago. Okay, so I'm going to change this headline component. Again, this is how it comes out of the box. So as you hover over these different components in Salesforce, you'll see it'll light up here, it'll highlight it, it'll tell you what it is. And then if you click on it, not all components are configurable, but most are. You can change the behavior of the component by just coming in here and filling in some text. So I'm going to change this slightly. Let's say welcome foodies. And I want to change my sub header as well. Let's say it's a place to find tasty options for your food service business. Okay, and you can see as I'm configuring the component, it's updating in real time, and you can kind of check it out as you're going. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to put a little bit more visual pizzazz on my home page. So I'm going to go up here to my components library. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to insert a rich text content editor. I'm just going to grab that component, and I want to put it right here below my header. I want it below. There we go. Okay, so now I've got this rich text editor here, and I'm going to go ahead and edit the contents of that. I just click on that. And when you open up the rich text editor, it gives you the ability to format different text, add images, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get rid of this placeholder text. And through the miracle of prepping for a demo, I'm going to go ahead and paste some information in here. Oh, of course, it didn't work the way it did earlier. All right, so let's go grab our images. So in our image library, we're going to go grab that image, and I'm going to put another one kind of next to it here. So we'll put another image in. And one more image to make it look good. Okay, so I just need to space this out a bit. So pretty straightforward to add things like images and additional text to your pages. Oops, one too far. And I just want to get my tags here as well. And you can also do this with another component. There's a similar component to the rich content called it's an HTML content. So if you're more comfortable with HTML and you want to go ahead and work at the HTML level, you can do that. So I'll go ahead and step out of that. So now my page is starting to look a little bit more like a food site. I've got some images, I've got some links here. I would make these links to make them a little bit more functional. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I'm going to be setting up this site so that my customers can get to cases. If they've got a case open with my support center, I want them to be able to find that case and kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to come up here to my nav menu. I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to add a new item. So I'm going to click on new item, and let's call this cases. And I want my cases menu bar to be based off of my Salesforce object. cases, and I'm going to let it default to the default list view. And I'm going to make this publicly available. So if I have somebody who's visiting my site as a guest, I'm going to let them see this link, and I'll explain why I'm doing that later. Okay. All right, so I've now added that to my menu bar. So now I've got a menu bar with a link to my cases page. I've got my images set up. There's some other components that came with this default page that I'm not going to use at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. So getting rid of components is pretty easy. Just click on the X to get rid of them. It will say, are you sure? Say, yes, I'm sure. You can always add them back. Okay. All right. So let's take a quick look. So up here in the upper right corner of my builder, I've got this preview button. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And preview now takes me into, this is what the site would look like if I was to publish it at this point. So I've got my search bar, large and prominent, easy for somebody to search for things. I've got my cases, link to my cases page. I've got some interesting looking information here about different products or offerings from my company. And then I've got these default ask a question contact support buttons. I'm going to leave those for now. So you can see in what was about 10 minutes, we've made this site look a lot better by just changing the styling, removing components that we don't want, and adding some new components to it. Okay. Evan, any questions at this point, or should I keep on going?
You can keep on going.
All right, great. Okay, so a couple more things I want to do to this first page here. So I mentioned that I made this community available to the public, and I did that. Let me get out of preview here. So I did that in my settings. I said that this public, or this site can be accessed by the public. And when you click that box, essentially what you're saying is that anybody that has the link to this community or searches for this community and finds it is going to be able to access it. Sometimes you may not want to do that. You may want every page on your site to be secured and require a login. It's really going to depend on your specific needs. But for this demo, I went ahead and made this available to the public. Okay, so knowing that there's going to be guest users who are going to be accessing this site, I've decided I want to encourage my visitors to actually sign up for a login, an authenticated account. So I'm going to go ahead and add another component to my page here. And this is a custom component that I built just for the demo. Very simple component. But the name of the component is called Please Log In. So I'm going to take that component and I'm going to drop it on my page. Okay, so now this component is going to show up for anybody who visits the page. Okay, so for a guest user, that makes sense that they would see this. But for an authenticated user, one of my customers who actually did log in, I don't want them to see this. It's not really meant for them. It's meant for my guest users. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what a logged in user would see. They would see this bar saying, hey, you're not logged in, please log in to get a better experience. So that's not what I want. So in order to change the behavior of this component, I'm going to click on my component and I'm going to change the audience for this component. So the audience feature of Salesforce is relatively new in the community, and it's a great way to where's my audience? We'll come back to that one. What I want to do is set this component up so that it is only viewable by my guest audience. I don't want my authenticated users to see this. Okay, so we're going to do that once I figure out why my audience button is missing. Okay, so that's the last change I want to make to my homepage. So the second thing I want to do is, now that I've exposed this cases page here, let's go see what that's going to look like. So up in the upper left-hand corner of the builder is my page navigation. So these are all of the different pages that were created when I generated this community using the template. So you can see there's quite a few different pages. Okay, you won't likely use all of them, but there's a good number of them here for different types of things. So one of the pages that's out here is the case list page. Okay, so when pages get created against a Salesforce object, there's going to be 3 actual pages created. There'll be the detail page, which is the record detail, which show all the fields and the information on the specific record. The case list is your list view, if you will, of the record that you want to show, and then your related list page would be for making this part of a related component, say to an account. So the page I want to look at is actually the case list page. This is the page that a user would get directed to if they wanted to look at their cases. And once we get to that page, get rid of that component for now. This is what they're going to see. So my authenticated user is going to come in and they're going to see a list of all of their cases. And it's up to me to decide which list views I'm going to give them access to. But this would be what they would see. So this is fine. This is exactly what I want. I want my customers who have opened up cases with my support center to be able to see what those cases are, to see if there's been any updates to the cases, even make comments or add additional information to the cases. So that's good by me. But what I don't want is, I don't want guest users coming in here and seeing this, because they're not really, I don't know who they are, and I don't want them having access to any of my case records. So in order to change the behavior, I'm going to create a page variation. So a page variation allows me to set a different version of the page for a different audience, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and add a new page variation. And you can specify different layouts for that. I'm going to go ahead and use the one full width. And I'm going to call this case page public. And we're going to say create. Okay, so we essentially get an empty shell here. It's just an empty template page, if you will. And I want to add a component to this page. I'm going to go ahead and use my rich text content again. Drop that in there. And I want to put a message in here for my public user. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I want this to be a little bit bigger. So we'll make this 20 point. And let's center that. Oops. And then let's make this centered as well, but let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So if I have a guest user who's looking at this page, I want to let them know that you really need to be logged in to look at cases. So let's just give them a friendly redirect, if you will, to log in. Okay. So I've set that up, and now I need to go in here and I need to set that page variation. So I've got my variation set up. So my variation is essentially, what do I want that page to look like? So I've called it case page public. And now I want to assign my audience to that page. So I'm going to click assign. And I have an audience that I created earlier. It's called public guest. I'm going to take that audience and I'm going to assign it. Now, some of you might be asking, what is that? It's a audience that I defined, and I said that this is defined by saying the profile is a user profile, and its type is guest. So in the settings, you have the ability to specify a user type of guest. So that's essentially what I've defined as my public audience. I'm going to go ahead and assign that to that page. Okay. So you can see now that it's been defined. The page variation is defined, and it's set to public guest. Okay, so that's all done. Now I'm going to go ahead and publish. And we're good to go. All right, so let's go back and finish our home page. So I want to take my login component. I'm going to move that right there. Okay, so what I had done earlier is I dropped it in the wrong spot. I put it in the header as opposed to this content area. So within the header, you can't set an audience because the headers are across all the pages. So now that I put it in the right place, I can assign my audience to this. And I want to use my same guest audience. I'm going to go ahead and assign that to my component. And now I'm done. So notice what happened when I did that. The builder's reminding me that I now have a component on this page that's only visible to a specific audience. This component went from the blue background, it now has this purple background on it. So anytime you see a component on a page, notice this one's blue. If they're purple, it means that there's been an audience configuration added to that page, okay? So let me publish one more time. So publishing essentially saves your changes to the community setup. It's usually a good idea as you're working on your site to publish every now and again. I'll go ahead and preview that. Okay, so I'm previewing this page. I'm seeing this because I'm not logged in as any specific user. So I'm going to go back to Builder. So I'm going to switch over to my other browser here. I've got a browser that's in Safari, and now I'm accessing the site. Here's the URL to my site, and I'm now seeing this. You're not logged in, please log in, because I'm a guest user. It doesn't know who I am, so I'm getting that special component shown to me. If I click on my cases, notice now I get the variation of the page that says, are you looking for cases? You need to log into the community to do that, okay? So my audience settings are working as I expected. As a guest user, I'm seeing my little special guest component here, and when I click on my cases tab, I'm seeing the variation of this page that's been set for guest users. Okay, so that is the power of the audience settings within Salesforce. So you can use that to set up content within your community to target specific users. So you may have one group of community users who are only interested in certain aspects or certain features of your community. You can go ahead and separate those by virtue of creating page variations or using audiences on your components. So you can do it at the page level, and you can do it at the component level to really tailor what content various users of your community will see. Okay. One last thing I wanted to do is this context support feature is sitting down here at the bottom. I think I'd be happier if my customers had an easier way of just contacting support. So I'm going to go ahead and make one more change to my community to make that happen. So I'll go back into my builder, and I'm going to click on my nav bar. I'm going to add one more item here. Let's call it Contact Us. This one will be a community page, and we're going to use the contact support page. And we're going to make this one also publicly available. And so now I've got a Contact Us page right at the top there. And if I preview, I'll see it there, and I can navigate to that page now. Okay. And this contact customer support component is now standard with this template. If we go back to Builder, let me show you. This component is actually one of the more configurable ones. If I click on the component here, I've got a pretty big set of different attributes that I can set. So if I don't want to say contact report, I can change that title, I can change the subtitle. I can change how it behaves for an authenticated user. I can create a different global action if I want for an authenticated user versus a guest user. So I do have the ability to kind of change that. I might have certain fields on this form, for instance, I don't want a guest user to have access to. So I can do that through defining a new global action. And then the confirmation text that I want to show the user once they do submit this contact us. This is all configurable as well. So probably one of the most configurable components I've seen with any of the Salesforce templates. And it's a really nice feature. We've used it a bunch of times for customers who want to have this sort of contact us feature on their community. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to publish. And I'm going to show you how I normally would test this as an internal user. So I'm going to go back into my Salesforce community, or I'm sorry, my Salesforce org. And I normally will access the community as one of my targeted community users. So if I go to this contact here, Marty McFly, if I've got a community active and I've activated this contact as a community user, I can log in to the community as that user. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to Webinar 1 as Marty. And so I'm now in the community. I'm logged in as Marty. His name is showing here. I'd be able to access his profiles and stuff. So notice my component that I set here, that please log in component, is now invisible because I'm signed in as an authenticated user, Marty McFly, and I don't see that because I'm not a guest. I'm an authenticated user. If I click on cases, I will see all of the cases that I have access to versus the message for an unauthenticated user. So it's a good way to quickly check to see if the community is behaving the way you hope it will behave when you have all your components set and your audience is configured. Okay, Evan, that is pretty much it for the demo. I think we can open it up for questions now.
Great, I will go ahead and take control back and we'll get on to those questions. Just give me 1 second here. And Jim, thanks, great presentation, a lot of great content that you presented today. And everyone, just to recap, if you'd like to sign up for any of our educational webcasts, you can do so on our website at getgsi.com/webcasts. And also, if you're looking for other great JD Edwards educational resources, you can go onto our online resource center on our website at getgsi.com, create an account, get access to all of our recorded webcasts, recorded 9.2 online workshops, presentations, white papers, and much more. You can also sign up to be notified on our weekly webcast as well as our monthly newsletter. All right, now I do see we've had a few questions come in, so let me go ahead and get to those for you, Jim. So first question is community functionality standard with Salesforce.com, or do I need to purchase additional licenses?
That's a great question. Yes, the community is a additional license of Salesforce. So if you have Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, you will need to talk to your Salesforce representative to find out what is the best type of community licensing for you. There's a couple of different buckets, if you will, of community licenses. There are customer community licenses, customer plus community licenses, partner licenses, and employee licenses. A number of companies are using the Salesforce community for employee communities as well. And the licenses come in 2 different flavors. There's named user licensing, and there is login per month licensing. So it really depends on your usage. Named user licensing is typically best for those communities where you have users who are going to be coming in multiple times in a month. Per login licensing may be better for somewhat sporadic usage. So you'll just have to kind of do some analysis and work with your Salesforce rep to figure out which licensing is the best. So that communities feature in the setup is only going to be there if you have licensing for communities. If you don't see that in your org, it's because you don't have the required community license.
Okay, great. Got another question from Monica asking, do you have the information on business impact that effective communities can have?
I don't have my fingertips. I mean, Salesforce has published a number of case studies as to the value of communities, and can certainly be of help in helping you build a business case for why an investment in community technology would be worthwhile. It's certainly something that if you leave us your contact information, we can send you some links to those documents from Salesforce.
Great, because yeah, and then there's a follow-up to that question asking, or do you have the data to justify community staffing and investments?
Yeah, I mean, that's, depending on the size of your community, communities are not, set it and forget it sort of features. They do require administration. They do require somebody from the company to keep an eye on them, moderate them, depending on what you're doing. And I always counsel customers who are setting up communities to establish somebody within the company to take responsibility for the ongoing maintenance of the community, the planning, working with customers to get feedback. When you have a community with hundreds of users and some features that are, pretty robust, it's a full-time job for somebody to continue to keep that community relevant. So it is an aspect of planning out the community that needs to be considered.
Okay, got a couple more questions here for you. Another one is, can I have more than one community for my organization?
Yes, you can. You can have up to 100 defined. I've never seen that many active at one time, but it's common for a customer to have an active community. They may have another community that they're prototyping some features and functions in that they're going to move over to their live community, if you will. So you can certainly use communities to trial out different features and work with your focus groups to get it right before you unleash it to the greater population. And some customers decide that their different populations of users are so different that they don't want to commingle them, so they will set up different actual communities for different types of users. So I've seen it done both ways.
Okay. Another question is, how are community users added and removed?
So they're a little bit different. So any of you that are familiar with adding and removing standard Salesforce.com users, it's different for community users. Community users always start as a contact. So they have to be a contact in the system. And the reason for that is the scope of their access to information is tied to their account. So out of the box, a community user who is activated is only going to be able to see records for their account. So if I'm on Acme Incorporated and you set me up as a community user, I'm only going to see Acme contacts. I'm only going to see Acme cases. I'm only going to see Acme opportunities, if you make those things available. There are ways to broaden that access to include other records outside of that account, but that is the de facto setup for community users.
Okay, and got one final question for you. It says, how do I ensure community users can only view their own record? And there's a second part to that question that says, how do I prevent them from changing certain fields on their records?
Both great questions. So the good news is that it's very similar to how you would control an internal user's access. So for a community user, what I recommend is if I'm going to give, and you saw my demo, so the case record that I gave the community user access to, I actually set up a page layout specifically for community users. So I took off that page layout, the types of fields a customer support manager I wouldn't want my community users to see. So for instance, if you have some internal notes fields or status fields that are really inappropriate for a customer to see, you just don't put those on the page layout. So the first and foremost way you would do it is to set up a page layout for your community users and assign that layout to those community profiles. In conjunction with that, you can also control access to fields either through the layout or on the profile itself. So within the profile, you may set, and using case as an example again, you may set certain fields to be read-only for community users. And you can do that at the field level. So field level security, which is a very powerful component within Salesforce, applies equally to community users.
Great, Jim, thanks. And that does appear to be all of our questions. So I definitely want to thank you for presenting today. There's a lot of great content that you presented, and I want to thank everybody for attending. And we do ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when exiting, and everybody who stayed for the entire presentation will be entered into a drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card. And you will also be receiving an email with a link to our resource center where you can get a copy of today's webcast as well as the presentation. So again, Jim, thank you for presenting. Everybody, thank you for attending. Have a good day. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Evan. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.